Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, 2 die and about 20 others are thought to be trapped below ground in a mining accident in Zimbabwe. It's the latest fatal mishap linked to the large-scale illegal prospecting in the country. And as the world's mining elite gather in Cape Town for a top-flight industry conference, we hear more about the challenges facing a sector that is economically crucial to the continent and yet comes at a huge environmental and social cost. And the very few Congolese World War II veterans still alive remember the sacrifices they made fighting for Belgium during the conflict. The former colonial ruler has been criticised for turning its back on African soldiers who battled shoulder to shoulder with Belgians. But first, at least 2 miners have died and around 20 are reportedly trapped in a gold mine in central Zimbabwe. The accident comes just 1 year after a similar tragedy in Kadoma, in which 24 men died. Unlicensed gold diggers operate in abandoned shafts throughout the country. With Zimbabwe going through its worst economic crisis in a decade, more and more people are turning to illegal mining to make a living. But unregulated prospecting comes at a huge cost to human lives, society, and the environment. Ryan Truscott joins us now with more from Harare. Ryan, first of all, rescuers are still working at the site. What's the latest you can tell us about what happened?
Well, details are still sketchy. This accident occurred at a mine in Kwekwe, which is more than 200 kilometers from Harare. And it happened on Wednesday night. A shaft at the Globe in Phoenix mine collapsed. A rescue party from the Civil Protection Unit reports seeing the bodies of 2 miners when they went down into the mine today. But there are an estimated 20 more miners still trapped. This mine wasn't being operated by a mining company. It had been overtaken by illegal gold diggers, and they operate at night. So it's very difficult to know exactly how many people were down there.
Now, police have arrested more than 2,300 illegal miners across the country over the last few weeks. Why do you think people still do it, despite the dangers and the government crackdown?
Well, illegal miners are trying to earn a living in what is Zimbabwe's second economic crisis in a decade. They have been tolerated by the authorities because they use rudimentary, albeit dangerous, methods to extract gold. At a time, some conventional mining firms have closed. Electricity and foreign currency shortages have hit the mining industry hard. So illegal miners, or artisanal miners as they're also known, produce most of the country's gold, and a good proportion of that is sold to the government. But recently, there's been a lot of lawlessness. We've seen the rise of the so-called mashurugwi, which are gangs of men armed with machetes who fight for control over mining claims and rob other miners of their gold and cash. Recently, civilians have been caught in the crossfire, and a police officer was even killed at one mine in late December. So it's a difficult, dangerous, largely uncontrolled sector of the economy.
Thanks very much, Ryan Truscott, there for us in Zimbabwe. Meanwhile, the African Mining Indaba is the world's largest mining investment conference, and that's happening this week. Mining is one of the biggest trades on the continent, and business bosses are joined by global political and financial decision makers in discussing challenges facing the crucial industry. Its operation in Africa has been dogged by numerous controversies. Sam Bradpeace was in Cape Town for us on Thursday, asking the question, is a sustainable future for mining on the horizon?
7,000 delegates and 38 government ministers gathered here in Cape Town for the Africa Mining Indaba. The 4-day event was marked right at the start with a stark warning from the CEO of Anglo-American plc, one of the largest mining companies in the world, who said that the industry as a whole faced a crisis of reputation. Mining companies have long been attracted to Africa not just because of its vast mineral wealth, but also because of relatively lax social and environmental standards. But industry insiders say that that is beginning to change.
Investors are definitely putting a higher premium on environmental and social governance issues. And in fact, many of them have indicated that they would not be willing to fund mining companies who don't have their house in order. They want to make sure that the mines are doing things right in the community, doing things right in the environment. So it's definitely, there is a renewed focus.
Despite this, the International Labour Organization says that tens of thousands of children are still employed in mines, not just in Africa, but also in South America and Asia too. Add to this the environmental damage caused by deforestation, poisonous chemical leaks and river rerouting, and it seems like the sector as a whole still has a long way to go to reach full sustainability.
Sam Bradpiece there for us in Cape Town. Now, Sudan's cabinet has said that the leader of the ruling Sovereign Council did not promise to normalise ties with Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had claimed that the two countries had agreed to cooperate towards that end when he met with Sudan's General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan in Uganda last week for secret talks. Sudan and Israel are technically at war, and Palestinians called the prospect of normalisation between the two a stab in the back. There are still no cases of coronavirus in Africa. Nevertheless, the disease, which has infected about 28,000 people in China, has Africa paying extra attention to incoming travellers. The continent's Centre for Disease Control and Prevention have activated an emergency operation to screen all passengers. Our correspondent in Cameroon sent us this report.
Thermal cameras, thermoflashes, brand new equipment has been installed at the Yaoundé International Airport to detect possible cases of people infected with coronavirus arriving in the country. South Korean technicians manufactured and transported the screening gear to Cameroon to help in its preparedness.
It's screening. It warns the officials, the medical officials, to know that this person may need to check body temperature using secondary measure. This is the secondary measure, which will be an electronic thermostat. You plug it in the ear and it will show us the temperature on the screen of a thermostat.
Medical teams are keeping a close eye on arriving passengers, especially those coming from China, which is at the heart of the coronavirus outbreak. Anyone suspected of being infected will be transferred to the Yaoundé Central Hospital under high security.
Voilà ce qui sert d'unité d'isolement.
We can only take in a limited number of suspicious cases based on the capacity of our emergency service. We can hospitalize 2 cases. More than that would require much larger infrastructure.
This unit has been set up alongside another one at the neighboring Centre Pasteur. Staff at the institute will be responsible for identifying cases of coronavirus in the event of an outbreak, but they have limited resources.
So if there are suspicious cases, we are ready to confirm it. We have all the primers we need, everything we need. It is true that the quantity is such that we only currently make 100.
Health authorities are doing what they can to be on the alert, but for now and thankfully, there have been no confirmed cases of coronavirus in Cameroon.
Congolese ex-soldiers who fought for Belgium in the Second World War say that they have been abandoned by the former colonial ruler. A recent documentary has shone a spotlight on the few veterans still alive. Nicolas Chemin tells us more.
Albert Kunyuku Ngoma is 97 years old. He's one of the last Congolese veterans who fought for the Belgian colonial army. During the Second World War, he was sent to the Middle East and Burma. He remembers vividly the racial segregation that existed in the army.
At the time of the war, we were Belgian slaves. It was the era of Belgian colonization. The Belgians had every right over black people.
His friend Daniel Mnyuki took part in the same wars. He was a military nurse.
Since there wasn't a medical corps, school kids like us were taken and sent straight to the front to treat the wounded.
The 2 men are at the heart of a documentary directed by José Adolphe Voto. He says these veterans were abandoned by Belgium.
I wanted those who gave their utmost, not only for Congo, but also during the World War, to be rewarded. Because when I spoke with them, I was disappointed to learn that they were never rewarded or acknowledged by Belgium.
The Congolese veterans' families have filed a lawsuit against Belgium saying it neglected them. They also say they have asked to meet Congolese President Félix Tshisekedi, but they are still waiting for an answer.
Now, a Malian musician claims that his irreplaceable musical instrument was broken by US customs officers. Balaki Sissoko was returning to Paris after a US tour when he discovered that his kora, which he'd been transporting in a hard case, had been taken to pieces. Sissoko is a world-renowned musician, and he says there was a note from US customs agents saying that they'd inspected the instrument. The strings, bridge, and complex amplification gourd had been taken to pieces. His fans have demanded an apology from US customs. Well, we'll leave you with sounds of Sissoko. Thanks very much for watching us here at Eye on Africa. Do so again if you can. Take care.
Hello, I'm Annette Young, the host of the 51%, and in this week's special edition we're coming to you from Dakar in Senegal. In the last decade, tens of millions of young African women have taken up modern contraception. But in many countries such as this one, sex outside of marriage is still very much taboo, making the fight for reproductive rights that much more difficult. We're going to be meeting the people, however, who are determined to get the message across.
The 51%, presented by Annette Young on France 24 and France24.com.